Today I'm going to show you the second part of my deer skull restoration, and we've got a few hiccups along the way. So let's get started. This is Moe's skull here. As you can see, we've lost the tip of his nose. I definitely know that I boiled this skull for too long. It ended up probably being 6 or 7 hours of like simmering, which is way too long. For the sake of getting it nice and clean, I think it's pretty good. I'm gonna move on to the bleaching process now. Hopefully that'll take care of all of these dark spots. I know that the back of the skull is gonna be hanging on the wall, so it really won't matter that way, but especially around the eye, that's a bit of a concern. The teeth too, like they're pretty gross. So we'll see how it all plays out, and I'll show you how to mix up the bleach. So since I'm a Joico girl, that's what I'm using for your lightning powder or ultra white, whatever you can pick up at Sally's. I got this at my distributor for my product, and 40 volume, which is 12% peroxide. 2 scoops of the powder. It'll be 1 scoop of bleach to 2 ounces of developer. You want it to be the consistency of like sour cream. Whoop. Working with powder lightener, you always want to work well. So the thicker the consistency, the better the lift. But with 40 volume, you're gonna get great lift. Let's paint this puppy up. The pieces that had broken off here, I set on my table. When I went to see if they were there today to lighten them as well, they were not. I thought that I could maybe piece it back together, then they were non-existent. I'm using more of a narrow 1/2 inch brush. I used 1 inch for everything else. The thing too about bleach is you don't want to let it dry out because then it stops working. So here's my skull. We're gonna pop it in the bag. You should put it in a sunny location, they said, for at least 24 hours. I can't stress enough, if your lightener gets cold, it will stop working. So here we go. Now we're gonna let it bake. So I ended up making an espresso paste. I'm gonna rub this on the antlers before I spray them off. I'm gonna grab some sandpaper, rough these up, and then I've got my espresso paste right here. Alright, so I'm just gonna let this sit out and dry probably for the next half an hour, and then we'll spray it all off. Zip back the head. I'm going to spray off the antlers first, and then I'm going to spray off the skull. This is the end result. I'll have to leave it to dry and sit in the sun, but like this area around the eye that I was really worried about being so dark has lightened up a lot. Like here, the teeth. Oh, I think it's missing a portion of its tooth there. I'll find it in the bag. It looks really good. I could come through again and like do up in some darker areas, like even around the teeth and stuff, but right now we're about to leave for holidays, but this looks pretty great. I'm happy with it. So this is the reference. This is a skull from last year, and we had it in the garden. Yeah, we did try and plant deer to see if they would grow, but it didn't work for some reason. So this was last year's, and this was the deer head from today. Amazing! Way better than I had anticipated. I wish the nose part hadn't broken off. And then I wish that I hadn't lost them. We blame the dog. So says Curtis, we should blame the dog for that. I'll need to do the coffee rub again because I didn't let it dry all the way before I hosed it off. So it definitely didn't penetrate as well. But we're leaving on holidays, so you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm gonna come back and maybe do some coffee rub along these lines here because I think they're so cool. All in all, really great experience. I hope you learned something. And if you haven't watched part 1 of this already, then you really should watch last week's. It's a little gross and gory. To go from there to this, it's definitely worth it. So thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you next Wednesday.